Right, here we go. Here's some quick hints for the prelim practice paper you've got. Hopefully at the bottom you'll see some links that you can just click to move between one question and another. First question, add a couple of fractions. Well, we know how to do with that. Deal with the first number. Let's make that a wee bit smaller. Deal with the first number and the second number. Get the new whole number. Then create a new bottom number by doing your favourite kiss and smile method. Okay, remember, if you end up with a top heavy fraction here, that you need to do something with it before you simplify. For question 2, get that on the screen. Factorise. Well, here it's a difference of squares. So what do I times together to make 4x squared? That goes in the front of the bracket. What do I times to make y squared? That goes in the end of the bracket. And that's it done. For the second part of the question, take your answer from part A, factorise the bottom by doing a common factor of 3, and then if you do that, some of your brackets should actually simplify. Question 3, group of people attended, make 2 valid comments. Well, we know how to do that. We start off by saying that on average, and then we talk about the spread. But remember, we need to talk about what the question's about. Okay, the mean number of cigarettes smoked per person per day, and then the standard deviation. Question 4. Okay, teams in a quiz answer the supporter scatter graph shows the scores of the teams. Find the equation of this straight line. Well, we know from the question what these 2 points here are. Okay, let me transfer the first one as 15 across and 33 up. If you do the same for that one, using those 2 points should allow us to find the gradient. And then once we've got the gradient, we know to use y minus b equals mx minus a. Right, we can't just use the graph this time because we don't know the scale to pick that point out. So if you use that formula, that will tell you the equation of the straight line. And then for the second part, you have to put the number 20 into that formula. Now question 3, there's 2 vectors. Calculate the length of A to B. Well, the length of A to B, that should just be a Pythagoras question. We know how to do that. We square, 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 add up and square root. Remember, it will be a surd, so we need to split that up into 2 square roots for the bottom. Question 6, solve the inequation. Well, there's not an awful lot we can do with the left hand side. Just leave it as 13 add 4x. The right hand side though becomes 18, and then you've got negative 7 take away 2, and then negative 7 times negative x is positive 7x. Now if you rearrange all of this, at some point you're going to end up with negative x's on this side and numbers on that side. Remember, to change that to a positive x, we need to change the direction of that sign. So that's the important bit that you need to remember, and then we change the sign on this side. Now question 7, we know that the graph has been moved along and down. Okay, this number here tells you how much has been moved along, this number here tells you how much has been moved down, and we need to put both of these numbers into the formula x plus a all squared plus b. Now remember, for this part you always put the opposite sign in, and then for part b that's just how much has been moved up or down. Okay, question 8, find the gradient of the line. Well, that means we need to take the equation 2y plus x equals 6, and we need to rewrite it as y equals. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the positive x over, and then we're going to move the 2 over. And that's going to give us y equals something times x, add something at the end. Okay, the something times x, that's going to be your gradient. The c, that's where you cut the y-axis, that's the number at the end. Question 9. Sorry. Let's find question 9. Here it is here. My mistake. Right then. Calculate the size of angle PQR. So we need to find the size of this angle here. So let's fill in as many angles as we possibly can. Here's a semicircle, so we know that's a right angle. Here's a semicircle, so we know that's a right angle. Okay, if this angle here is 37 and that one's 90, that should allow you to work out what that half angle is in there. Now we also know that this angle here is 90 degrees. So knowing that's 68, that should allow you to work out what this angle here is. And then again, because of the triangle, that should then allow you to work out this angle here, because of the right angle triangle. And then the answer you want is just both of these added together. Question 10. The cost graph. Now the minus a part inside the bracket, that just means your cost graph has been moved to the right a units. So what does a cost graph normally look like? The cost graph normally looked like this. Let me dot it in for you. That's what a cost graph normally looks like. But this one has been moved across so many units. And that's what the questions ask you. How much has it been moved across? Well, if it normally goes through 90 and it's now going through 120, that should be fairly easy. Question 11. Clean a washboard in special offer. Each box contains 20% more than the standard box. Okay, so if it's 20% more, that means you've got all the standard box plus 20%. So that means you've got 120%, which you can change to a decimal as 1.2. Now the special offer one's 900. How many does the standard box contain? It's a backward percentage. So basically we need to do 900 divided by 1.2. And remember, it's without a calculator. Question 12. Seen these questions before. Parabola has that. Show the parabola has no real roots. Well, you know the condition for that is that b squared minus 4ac has to be less than 0. So from your equation up here, identify a, identify b, and identify c. Put all of these numbers into that formula and see if your answer is indeed less than 0. For the second part, that is just a fancy way of saying complete the square. Okay, we know how to complete the square. The bit inside the bracket is x for x squared, and then the number here is going to be half of this number up here, half of the negative 3. So you put that in there, square it, and then ask yourself, how do I get to this number at the end? What extra have I got to add on to make it reach 5? Once you do all that, you've got enough information to go ahead and sketch the diagram. Because it's a wee bit like question 8, I think it was, where the number here in the bracket tells you how much you've got to move to the right, and the number at the end tells you how much you've got to move up. So it looks something like that, and you can tell me what that point is. You can also tell me what that point is. Question 13. Now I've been a wee bit sneaky here with question 13. Calculate the area of the triangle. Now the easiest formula you've got for area of a triangle is half base times height. You might think to yourself, but wait a minute Mr. West, this here, we don't know. We don't know what the height is. However, if you just ignore the actual picture which is there, and if you imagine that triangle has been turned around, with the right angle sitting on the bottom rather than up here, this side being 15, this side being 20, this side being 25, now you do know the base. Now you do know the height. So now you can work out its area. And then part B says BD is the height of the triangle. Use your answer to part A to calculate the height of BD. This is now where you're going to use the original method, which is again area equals half base times height. Now remember, you know what that area is, you've worked it out from up there. We know that the base is 25, so we know a half of 25 times the height equals your number from above. We're trying to find the height, so that means the 2 needs to go over, the 25 needs to go over, and then you're left with the height of the triangle.